the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
They're all so different in so many different ways. They're successful for very different reasons. But I just look at it and I'm like, I was thinking in terms of like just emotional investment. And if you had to if a Tennessee fan came up to you, Brent, and y'all kind of touched on this a little bit, where, look, the recruiting stuff we're going to get into in a second with Heupel and where that's at as we wrap up this 2024 class. But now that we've gotten 3 years of seeing what Heupel is and the offense and the adjustments and the recruiting, the portal, this, that, and the other, along with Barnes, we've seen for a long time. We know the defense first mentality. He kind of feels like Tennessee's Mark Richt for basketball. Great dude. You know what you're getting. The bar is really high. You're ranked every week. He's setting those kind of records. Like the ceiling's pretty high. But still no title and no deep run that everyone's still waiting for. And maybe that's this year because this is probably his best team he's had at Tennessee. So we'll see what it looks like in March. But then Vitello, you look at it and it's like, oh, he's just completely different than those two. And he recruits at such a different level. He recruits like an Alabama in football, and Tennessee might have a top 3 recruiting base year over year as long as he's in Knoxville. But I don't know. It's just, do you think about that and how different, how interesting it is that all 3 are successful in 3 different ways, but which one ultimately gets a ring first, doing it their way?
Well, I mean, I think when you're talking about getting a ring, I mean, all 3 have their own sets of challenges. All 3 sports do to getting a ring. Now, college football is changing because it's been a mentality that you can't lose in the regular season and still win, which with the expanded playoffs, that's going to change because 12 teams are going to get in. You're going to have a chance with, 1 or 2 losses to get in and have a chance to go play for the thing. College basketball is weird because it's so much about matchups for 3 weeks. You could be the best team. You could be the hottest team going in. And in that sport, if you're off one day, it's over. It's the most sudden death thing ever. And in basketball, one guy can win a game for you. I mean, he can be the total difference. I mean, one guy can get hot and it's a 40-point night on a Thursday night in the second round or, opening round of the NCAA tournament, and you go home. There's a lot more, I won't say luck because that's not fair, but good fortune has to fall your way to be the best team for 3 straight weekends. And very few teams have steamrolled through, right? Teams that have won a championship have had that one, how'd they pull that off? That one kind of uh-oh game. And then in college baseball, I think college baseball is as hard as anything to win because it's such a grind to get there. And then when you get there, it's a whole new season all to its own when you get to Omaha. But in terms of personalities, I mean, I think to win at Tennessee in baseball, the coach has to be the face because you're marketing all the time. Now it's catching on, right? Well, why is it catching on? It's catching on because A, they've been good, and B, their baseball coach is rowdy, right? He's a rowdy guy. I mean, if you get kicked out of a game, he's selling lemonade outside a stand. He's saying whatever he wants to say. He's just kind of doesn't care. I mean, he's at the football games and he's cheering and he's doing all kind of the zany stuff to make sure he stays relevant in the minds of fans, which I think you have to do in baseball. Rick Barnes is 70. He's sold enough popcorn. I mean, this is the same guy now. When he was at Clemson, rode around in a golf cart and went to every tailgate he could find to visit with fans because he was trying to get fans to buy into Clemson basketball. I mean, he was at every Saturday he was bouncing around all over the place at Clemson. Now he doesn't have. I mean, the guy's going to the Hall of Fame. He doesn't have to do that. Josh Heupel is making the adjustment to the popularity factor and the stress of being the coach at Tennessee versus where you were at UCF. I mean, Josh Heupel's at his happiest when he's sitting in an office on a grease board drawing up ball plays. Figuring out how to convert 3rd and 6, figuring out how can I scheme to get a guy open? That by nature is when he is at his absolute happiest. And I think that there's still an adjustment period for him a little bit in terms of just the magnitude of this job. Not that he's failing at that, but there's still a learning element to how important everything is. What all these things matter that you don't think matter. They end up mattering and they're important. And so you're not just a guy trying to make a first down. You're a CEO of a multi-million-dollar operation.
Yeah.
And I think he's growing in that. I think he's done a good job in that, but I think that's an area where he has to continue to grow.
It is interesting. I mean, to speak to that, it's Vitello has that. Vitello is not running from it. He's building the Juggernaut. You look at what we're building in terms of seeding and just where that's going. I also think we talk about just the gauntlet that it takes to win in the College Baseball World Series. I was telling family, I'm like, here's the other part of it with emotional investment. Like, the last 3 titles are all SEC schools. LSU last year, and then the 2 Mississippi schools before that. We're on a run here.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, the Mississippi schools that won it maybe weren't the best team in the SEC, and they won the thing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the crazy part about that sport. I mean, gauntlet that is this league is just crazy. But I think to get yourself into the world of some of those blue bloods that have a better pedigree, if you will, than what Tennessee has had. Because there was that long drought between what Rod Delmonico did and now what Tony Vitello is doing, is you got to make it relevant. You have to make it relevant. And the one thing that's interesting about Vitello, and this is not a knock on Rod Delmonico, because Rod Delmonico sold it like nobody's business. And he sold it in a little bit of a different way. He fought internally with people to make baseball relevant. Like he was in meetings fighting for speakers, for a better speaker system, right? He was internally fighting to get the commitment to baseball to where it needed to be. The popularity from that baseball team came largely from his players, because he had a bunch of Knoxville kids that were really good. Bubba Trammell, a guy by the name of Todd Helton, who was a really good player that everybody in Knoxville knew. So the fan base for that team were a bunch of Knoxville people, because they had seen and knew about these local guys that were there. Tony Vitello's had some local guys who have been successful. He's also done some things with some mid-state guys who have become really popular, and some guys out of state who have become really popular. And the most popular thing in Tennessee baseball is Tony Vitello. It's not been one individual player. That wasn't really the case with Rod Delmonico. So there's a little bit of a skin in the cat, a little bit of a different way. But the thing, I mean, Tony Vitello is real, and he's brash, and he looks pretty good on camera, and everybody likes him and everything. I mean, he's witty, and he can be charming, and he can be intense, and he's a baseball junkie. I mean, it's baseball 24/7 out of him. And I think that's what you have to have at Tennessee. I mean, he was a great find. I mean, he's the guy that when you hired him, what's interesting is who you hired. You hired Rick Barnes, who everybody knew his pedigree. What was the question you had? How many years has he got left in him? Right? Is this just a soft landing spot for a guy who got ran out at Texas? Right? And then you hire Josh Heupel, who's had some success, right, at UCF, but he's still a little bit of an unproven commodity. I mean, he's won faster than anybody thought. But those 2 guys had a little more success. I mean, when Tony Vitello strolled up to the podium, everybody went, "That's a pretty good looking dude. Can he coach baseball?" Right? Like, what are we doing here? And what you found out is he put a great staff together. They've recruited the rear ends off. He's motivated kids. They've got a plan, and they have executed their plan brilliantly, to the point that you're putting $100 million into a baseball stadium, and you've been to the College World Series 2 of the last 3 years. Pretty good.
And I tell family and friends, I'm like, y'all don't understand. Like, it's standing room only for like Georgia in mid-April for a Tennessee-Georgia baseball weekend. And that's really unheard of in college baseball. You're not going to find that at a lot of spots. It's a hot ticket. It's the hottest ticket in Knoxville the last 2 years.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think there's a couple of reasons. One, that's because you win. 2, tickets have been attainable. They haven't outpriced the family for being able to go to a game. Now we'll see when you put $100 million into a stadium. Is that going to continue? The porch thing has become just a social scene, a social hangout for donors, and a lot of people there that suddenly going to baseball games are cool.
Yes.
Right. And then this fan base is smart enough to know when to get serious about baseball. Right. So you got some midweeks, you got some weekends games that are okay. And then you get later in the year, and then all of a sudden, I mean, the intensity of the fan base in there in, March compared to what it is in May is vastly different, as it should be. One of the things I will applaud this administration, Danny White and everybody, for doing with this stadium renovation is they didn't go dumb big, right? They didn't go stupid big.
Like Mississippi State, where it's just
big.
empty. It's just too big.
I mean, for other than the Ole Miss series or LSU coming to town, it's empty.
Yeah.
Even when they're good, it's empty. And it's not because there aren't people there. It's just they're not 15 to 20,000 people there. It's too big. And so to keep it kind of, and that was a big thing with Tony. Tony Vitello wanted to keep it a kind of a small hornet's nest, as he's called it. And that's exactly what he's getting with this expansion that's going on.
It's going to be intense, and we'll see how this year goes. But he's got the best thing cooking. I feel like he's got the best CEO and mindset for winning a title over the next couple of years. If I had to bet of the three who would be most likely to win a title in the next 3 years, I think it'd be Vitello.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably I won't say easier because it's not easier. I think in that sport you can overcome one bad day at the office. Now, if you have 2 bad days, you're going home, but it's a best of 3, right?
Yeah.
To get out, you can come out of the losers bracket in a regional. You can have a hiccup. You can't have a hiccup in the NCAA tournament, or you're going home. And if you hiccup late in the year in football, that's eliminated you from that. Now we'll see. But then when you get, I mean, how are kids and everybody going to handle a 3-week playoff deal? Like the intensity of that, and I mean, that's going to take some getting used to for coaches and players.
Also, the portal, like we haven't even talked about this, Brent. Like, are we going to have guys play the first game and then have to leave and go to the portal for the second or third round? Because the calendar's still the calendar.
Yep. And the portal calendar can't change.
Yeah.
Because guys have to get somewhere in January. It can't change. So, I mean, like, what would Kyle McCord have done for Ohio State if there was a 12-team playoff? He's standing on the sidelines at the Boca Raton Bowl watching Syracuse, probably wondering what in the world he got himself into because they were a train wreck. Congratulations to Alex Golesh, by the way.
Yeah.
But what are those guys going to do? Right? I mean, you got to stay and play, but how are you? So are we really going to go the Eli Drinkowitz route and say, if you go in the portal, that's fine, but you still can play for me? Yeah, it's a season.
Yeah.
If that's the case, how's that going to go? How's that going to go in the locker room? All right, let's rally around Tommy. Tommy's going to be here somewhere between 8 and 20 more days, but Tommy's our guy. Like,
I guess you look at it as an expiring contract in the pros.
But it's 18 to 20. They don't even know they don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
The guys have no idea what expiring contract means. You know what I mean? It's
yeah.
Half the college basketball players don't understand what a 2-way contract means in the NBA.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, they just think you're drafted and you're on the team. I mean, so there's a lot to sort out in that world moving forward next year. I mean, December was really wild this year. It's going to be zany, crazy, bizarre come next December.
It's great. We're all having fun, Brent. We're all having fun, and I'm sure the coaches are having fun. They're having a great time. Speaking of recruiting, though, Chris Brazzell, or is it Brazzell? It's Brazzell, right? Because his dad was the Cowboys receiver.
Yeah, it's Brazzell.
Yeah. Brazzell, Chris Brazzell. He picks the Vols today. I'm most curious now. How does this rotation look like? Because a lot of Tennessee fans are excited because the size, it's the measurables. Like, he's a big dude, 6'5", speedy, productive at Tulane, but still a big jump from G5 to an SEC schedule here in Knoxville. And I wonder too. It's easy to forget, but like the Dante Thornton hype, I think, was higher going into last year, and I think you still at least saw some stuff. And he was at a Power 5 school.
Go. Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.